Welcome to Home Hive. Today, I have an incredible opportunity to interview my co-host, Krystin Krebs. Krystin, thanks so much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So today we're going to be talking about your interior design business, Krystin Krebs Interiors. So as we dive into this, just tell our audience a little bit more about yourself and about your business.
Sure. Well, my name is Krystin Krebs. I have an interior design business. I focus on small spaces, so ADUs, tiny homes, anything that's a small space. But my background actually is very diverse in the industry. I've done everything from kitchen and bath remodel work to model homes to high-end residential, and pretty much everything in between. So I got my bachelor's degree from the Academy of Art University in San Francisco in interior architecture and design. And then I went and took the IDEX exam, which is the California exam here, which basically lets me be certified. So it's kind of like the way that an architect goes through certification after he graduates college, he or she graduates college. They then get their architecture's degree. It's kind of similar.
So you're a certified interior designer?
Correct, yes. I'm a certified interior designer. And I live in an ADU.
So for our audience, if you're familiar with Home Hive, a lot of what we discuss is specific to ADUs. So Krystin, why are you passionate about ADUs? You live in one, but share with us a little bit more. Why does that resonate with you? And then also, it's obviously it's resonated so much that your business focuses a lot on smaller spaces, specifically ADUs.
Yeah, it's definitely something I'm really passionate about. My main motivation for kind of promoting ADUs is not only obviously there's a lot of good incentives right now within the state, cutting fees, almost waiving fees in some areas, just depends on where you're located. But my main motivation is to provide housing, affordable housing, especially because millennials in particular are coming into kind of that time frame in life where they can start to afford to buy housing. But with all the prices that are out there, we've been outpriced by everything. So ADUs allow us to be able to buy property that either can help us pay off our mortgage, if we can afford one. And in some cases, there's even some ADUs that are available for sale by themselves, which provide affordable housing.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, there's so many incredible opportunities with ADUs in so many different ways that they can, help with yourself, with affordable housing, with cash flow, with investing. But specific to interior design, so share with us. So from your business standpoint, let's talk about finishes. So let's talk about finishes for an ADU, and just for context-wise, whether it's a renovated space already on a property or whether it's a new build, does that impact you at all, or your scope of work or your services?
Nope. Yep. I do them both. I do new build and I do remodel work. My background's in remodel work, but when I did model homes, obviously those are new builds. So I've got a kind of half and half of my history is on both sides, but I love doing both. But yeah, finishes are definitely really important, especially in an ADU, because it is a very small space. So you really kind of have to think about who it is that you're designing for. For instance, if you're designing for an elderly family member, maybe they're ill or, they just want to be closer to you so that they can have the right kind of healthcare nearby. You definitely want to kind of consider the materials that you're putting in the property because, for instance, vinyl has a really bad off gas to it. And if they're already sick, having vinyl on the floor, vinyl flooring can actually not help their health. And especially with like windows, we're doing all double pane windows now. So we're locking up all the chemicals and things that we're bringing into our homes and not allowing them to be released and get fresh air in. So it can actually create a really toxic environment. So it's definitely something you want to consider. But on the other hand, if you were going to be building your ADU to then rent it out to a renter, you probably want something really durable like a vinyl flooring. So it's kind of depends on who you're really planning for. But definitely want to consider that before picking out the finishes. And then, of course, finishes, different types of finishes that are out there. If you were to do a marble countertop versus like a Caesar stone countertop or something like that, if you are going to be selling your home in the future, the appraisal value of a marble countertop is much higher than a Caesar stone countertop. So if you're trying to refinance or something like that at the end of putting an ADU on your property, it's definitely something to consider as well.
Such good information, right? Because as you're doing it, you may not understand the longer term impact, if you will. And
Right.
just so our audience understands, so when we say finishes, just kind of break that down for us. What does everything that finishes includes?
Yeah, it's a good question. Finishes includes paint, cabinet, flooring, hardware, pretty much anything you can't take with you. So if you were to sell the house, it's got to stay. Those are the finishes, and that's what I generally do when I pick out those pieces. I pick out furniture and stuff for clients too when asked, but what my specialty really is to pick out the types of finishes that go within the space. So I work really closely with contractors and architects, drafters and permit runners, all that kind of stuff. So.
Great. Great. You had just touched upon why finishes for different people, for the right client. So not only just for the type of finishes you select can impact your appraisal value, but then also you were talking about if you're getting a certain types of finishes, it can have impacts for elderly. Is that the same also then with children too? So break that down for us a little bit.
Yes, yeah, it's definitely the same for kids too. There's even VOCs are in paint. They're toxic chemicals that are within paint. So if you really can't get a no VOC paint, but you can get a low VOC paint, which is almost non-existent. So, but yeah, those are kinds of things you definitely want to consider, especially for kids too. Asthma is a really common issue for kids. So, having allergens to help, alleviate that is definitely helpful to consider. So, you want to do rugs instead of carpet, want to do low VOC paint. If you are going to do a flooring, I would suggest doing a hardwood instead of a vinyl, just because vinyl does have that off-gassing effect, especially because if it is a new build, you probably are putting double pane windows in, so you're locking up that room even more, and all those chemicals just kind of build and just formulate in there. So it's going to cause people, especially with asthma or something like that, some more issues than it would otherwise. So.
And does it being a tiny space, could it impact them even more than versus in a 4,000 square foot home, or does it not matter?
It definitely does impact you more because you are limited in the square footage of your home. You probably could open a window in one room, 2,000 square foot house and be able to get airflow in. Whereas if you're in a tiny home, if you have the window open and you're sitting right next to it, it might be uncomfortable, might be too much air. So you probably would be closing that up or opening it up completely depending on the weather. But yeah, it will impact you because there really isn't anywhere for it to go. Whatever chemicals and things that are building in this space, if you have a bigger house, you have doors, windows, other areas you can kind of close off so that it either creates airflow or seals up the room. But with a tiny home or with a small space like an ADU, there's only so many windows you have. Most houses have more than 2 or 3 windows like an ADU. Most houses have more than one door like an ADU does. So you have more ability to be able to get fresh air in a bigger house versus a smaller space. You definitely want to be more conscious that you're getting fresh air.
A lot of good things to consider, especially whether it's a new build or whether it's a renovation. There are a lot of factors to consider.
Definitely. Yeah.
So let's transition into space planning. So ADUs are, obviously smaller in size, square footage. And so as the space is either being renovated or built, whether neither of those really impact how the space could be used, because the thing is that it's the design of the inside, it's that interior design, space planning that is so critical and how to optimize the space. Can you share with us about why that's so important and so crucial for small spaces?
Yeah, definitely. You are building a small space, so you are very limited on what you can do and where you can place things. So I always tell my clients every inch counts. So, you definitely want to make sure that you're placing your window in the right area and you're considering what size sofa you're going to be getting so that your window doesn't overlap with your sofa. or your door is placed in the right location so that your sofa doesn't overlap with your door, or the door swing doesn't swing into another door swing, so that you don't have this weird conflicting door situation. So there's definitely a lot of things to consider. Something that I see a lot in ADUs is pocket doors. Those are a great solution for doors because door swings take up a lot of floor space. Mm-hmm. And when you've only got 300 square feet to work with, a door swing can make or break a layout of a home. So pocket doors are a great opportunity. And just consider your window placement too. You don't necessarily want your bathroom door to directly open to the window on the other side of the wall, because if you leave your door open, you can see right in through the window to the bathroom, which can make for awkward situations. But so definitely some things you want to consider. That's kind of why interior designers are important, especially when building small spaces. Because space is so limited, you definitely want to make sure that things are placed in the right spot. Architects are great at designing the outside of a building and making sure that it stands upright. It's got the right structure and form, but sometimes they don't always necessarily take into consideration the furniture. Whether it's an 86-inch sofa or a 76-inch sofa, there's different things that you want to be sure you're considering before we start placing windows and doors. So it's always nice to have an interior designer on hand.
Absolutely. And so it's so interesting because I think that interior designers can oftentimes be overlooked and also maybe just not fully understood the full breadth of services that designers provide. So from the finishes, from what we just had spoken about, the importance of the finishes, how that could impact the people who will be living in it. And then also then in designing a tiny space is really being able to then optimize it. So, I mean, it's so important. I mean, you're living in one now. I mean, do you have any helpful hints for people who may be moving into one or want to build one for themselves or for family members?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, generally, people who are moving into an ADU are moving from somewhere larger into somewhere smaller. So you are going to have to downsize. So I really would suggest taking only the necessity items with you, clothes, cookingware, anything like that. So bath accessories, things like that. So anything that's maybe non-essential, you'd probably want to place in storage or sell it, do something else with it. But it probably can't come with you into the ADU, otherwise it's going to feel really small. So I would definitely say minimize what you've got, and then definitely consider your storage solutions. There's underbed storage options. There's closet storage options. I've even got some shoe boxes, some really cute little shoe boxes from IKEA. I took them underneath my sofa, so that gives me a little bit of extra storage as well. So you can always stuff some things in cabinets, but you're going to have to be a little creative with where you're going to start to place things, because there's not many people that I know of, at least yet, that have moved from a smaller space than an ADU into an ADU. So, it does require a little bit of creativity, but there's definitely some solutions out there. There's, you definitely want to do some utilitarian furniture. So for instance, either a sofa that then turns into a sleeper sofa or a futon potentially. I have a coffee table that actually folds up and becomes my dining table. So that's kind of a nice opportunity to be able to utilize the space, because you're limited on what you can do with it. So you want furniture that can either be multifunctional or, utilitarian in some way so that it can help benefit.
Another key reason on why working with an interior designer, because I actually had never even thought about that. I didn't even know that. And I've actually seen your space before. I didn't know that it transitioned.
Oh, yeah.
So powerful. It really is. I mean, there's so many different functions that furniture and spaces can have, and just working with the professionals on how to utilize it and also optimize it is really important. So let's transition. Let's talk a little bit about the indoor and outdoor living to create a larger space.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, ADUs are very small spaces. So you definitely want to consider what you're going to be building around the ADU as well. For instance, you could have sliding glass doors that open up. So that creates kind of a larger space for you. So you don't necessarily even need a dining space within your ADU if you've got an outdoor dining or or vice versa with a living space, especially here in San Diego. We've got sunshine almost all year round. So the living space outdoor is going to be utilized a lot more than, let's say, if you lived in Washington State or somewhere where outdoor living is a little bit more challenging. But, you still want to be able to consider that as an option, because it definitely does make the space feel much larger. And then you can use more of the outside space with the indoor space so that it gives a little bit more flow and you get some more fresh air.
Awesome. So many things to consider. Well, Krystin, share with our audience how, if someone wants to get in touch with you, if they're already in the process of looking into renovating a space or building a new space, or if they're in a space now but still need help from an interior design perspective, share with our audience on how they can get in touch with you.
Sure. You can reach out to me at my website. It is Krystin, Krystin, Krebs, Krebs, interiors.com. And then, of course, I am on Instagram and Facebook also at Krystin Krebs Interiors on both platforms. And I'm also on Pinterest. But the website is probably the easiest way to get in contact with me. There's a little link on there that says contact, and then that email will drop directly into my inbox. And then we can connect from there. And actually on my website, I'm hosting an ebook, a little book I put together, basically covers everything we just talked about. So
awesome. Well, Krystin, thank you so much for sharing with us about what your business does, but really also the critical points of why working with a professional interior designer can help a consumer through the entire process in optimizing building and or living in an ADU. So thanks so much for what you do. And also thanks for advocating for ADUs. There's such an important opportunity in our region. So thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you.